Welcome to Scottish Rugby's Guinness Six Nations preview ahead of this weekend's huge encounter with England in round 3 of the 2025 tournament. Mossy, you and I back again, ready to go.
I've got notes.
You've got, well, we need notes for this one. The
There's a lot to think about.
The thing about round 3 is it's the most important game in determining how the rest of it's going to go.
Really influential.
Especially when it comes to England-Scotland at Twickenham.
I mean, generically across the championship, the middle weekend with a fallow, either side, and the momentum swing and the start, and the build up to how you push towards the end. But the middle weekend, generically for everyone's really important. And then you add into that the fact that, Scotland and England are both 1 from 1. There's the history around it, the recent history around it, and there's a history around the fixture. One team's coming off the back of a last-minute win. One team's coming off the back of a defeat. The ramifications of losing this, the consequences are pretty difficult to deal with because you go into another fallow week and then you've got the 2 remaining fixtures. So there's loads to chat about, loads to try and get clear. We'll probably chat too much about it, as will 99% of the population, and it means very little until for the 80 minutes it takes place. But it's because there's that much history, that much surrounding it. Of course we get carried away talking about it.
There's so much around this fixture. I mean, 1896, that's the last time that Scotland had 4 wins in a row against England. It's a while. This is our 5th. It would be the first time we ever managed to achieve that. Yeah. Is that this? We talk about this, pundits talk about this, the media talks about this. Is it of any relevance or interest
I'll
to
probably
the
give you a
players?
different answer to most people. My
I like your answer.
grumpy old answers. I don't think in the moment you're in the game, no, absolutely not. If you think you can think back and historical games, or even what happened last year, or even what happened last week, or even what was said in a meeting, or what video used to motivate you, like when you're in the moment, you've got a decision to make in a split second with pressure coming left, right, and centre. You have to be involved in that moment. You have to be engaged in that moment. So I don't think specifically all the stuff we'll talk about has an influence. Now, I was kind of quite unemotional as a player. I felt I had to separate emotion from it and just be a player rather than a supporter on the field, like getting caught up in emotion. I had to be quite clinical and cut it all out in order to try and produce my best. So other players, I think, probably would use that. But for me, I don't think it has an effect. Where it might come into your mind is if there's in the bus trip on the way to the ground, you're thinking, like all these things going through your mind, all that spoke about, over the last 12 months, the last, 12 hours. But I think in the moment, when you're making a decision, when you're under pressure, when you're making the tackle or making the pass or calling the line or kicking the goal, that's your focus. You're doing your job. You're doing the job. And a lot of that kind of stuff before maybe built up into you being prepared to do your job. But directly, I don't think so. Before and after, maybe, or if you are lucky enough to win 5 in a row, then it becomes an issue. Or if you lose and you have to hand back the Calcutta Cup, then the history becomes an issue. When can you get it back again? And in the moment, no, I don't think so. I think you've got a job to do. You have to do it.
It would be nice, though, keeping that cup for 50. I'm not going to lie.
And it would be nice. It's hard to say. Like it's difficult as well because I still feel as if I played fairly recently, and it's not. It's over a decade since I played. And most of my games against England, the majority of the period I played was just before and just after that 2003 World Cup winning side that were exceptional. I mean, they were on a different level.
They were a different class.
They were amazing. And I was lucky enough to win 3 games against that in England. And I thought, there can't be many. I don't think there were many players that had won 3 Calcutta Cups. Now you've got guys who've won it 4 times in the bounce in the last 4 years. So,
my children, you've got children, an entire generation of children that actually don't really remember. You've got 8-year-olds that started watching. They don't remember.
That's it. It was 2000. They won in 2000. It was 10 years since they'd won it. And then, got it back in 06 and 08. And then it was another 10 years before when there was a draw in 2010. But there was 10 years before he won it again. So there's big periods where England were dominant, and understandably so, with the resources and the player base and everything we see. And I hope we appreciate how well the players and the management and the coaches and everybody's done in the last 7-8 years. It's exceptional, and that shouldn't be a burden. It shouldn't be a burden or we can only beat England. What, like, beating England's a massive achievement. If you look back at it, especially down there, it hadn't been 30 odd years since we'd won, and we've won a draw and 2 wins in the last 3 visits, but the draw was a pretty exceptional game at 38-all.
It was
mind-blowing. And I maintain as well, and I may be wrong in this, I think because England were so far ahead, that changes the game. Mm-hmm. It changes everything. It releases a pressure on the attacking side and it releases a pressure on the defensive side. I can't remember, was it 31-7 at half-time or there or thereabout?
But the comeback was
brilliant, but the decision was easy and the actions were easy. If it had been an 8-point or a 12-point lead for England, would we have seen what happened? You don't know. So I think that almost took care of itself, but then to get ahead and then for England to fight back, it was a really strange feeling. But I do think it had an effect on the next 2 visits that we've won.
Can't let that happen again.
And although there's been some ridiculously brilliant tries scored, especially 2 years ago down there, it's still built on hard work. The game behind closed doors in 2021 was wet, it was miserable. There was really good decisions to kick and chase and keep players from the line, like the stereotypical things that the Scottish teams that I was involved in that beat England, that's kind of how the game went. And in 2023, it took a 80-metre try in 3 minutes for time, 4 minutes for time to win. Well, that's hard. So we can't just assume because we've won so many recently that it'd be a massive failure if we didn't. It's going to be hard. It's going to be decisions that are so finely balanced that determine where we keep it for a 5th year in the bounce.
And in the context of this year's tournament as well, if we look at, finishing against Ireland the way we did and then having the fallow week, that's largely probably been a huge advantage in that sense, giving everybody a chance to catch their breath, those that aren't involved elsewhere. For England, however, you had an outstanding second half against France, and there might be that feeling of wanting the momentum to continue. It's
a momentum swing, isn't it? Like we say it all the time, and it sounds like a cliche, and it kind of is. And at the start of every Six Nations, you start well, momentum's key. But every year, and every week within every year, there's another story or another swing of momentum. I thought the way that England won the game in the end was really good.
Credit to them, it was that.
The last try, under pressure, had to win it, had just scored and then conceded again. But the structured play and the attacking play, I think they'll take so much from that in terms of confidence. However, if you scratch beneath the surface, I'm having a look, this is what my notes are for. England have scored 7 tries, and there's a lot of chat about England's attack and it's improving and they're playing more ball in hand, they're playing more rugby. I think they are, but I'm yet to be totally convinced that they're comfortable doing it. Of course they've got the players to do it. Of course they can deliver it, with the quality they have. But they've scored 7 tries, 3 against Ireland and 4 against France. And just before we met up, I had a look at them all again to refresh. And every one of them, well, other than the first try that was 0-0 in the scoreline between England and Ireland, England have been behind every time they've scored a try. So they've chased.
They've been on the back foot.
They've been behind. They've been points down in the scoreboard. So they're chasing the scoreboard, which I think, again, like we said in the 38-all game, there's a desperation, there's a want, there's a skill level to do it as well, and an element of brilliance about it. But are they totally confident in that role if they are ahead? If they're defending the lead? It seems to be
almost untested this campaign. Well, it's untested.
A little bit, yeah. It's almost and scoring the first try against Ireland away in Ireland was good. It was an excellent multi-phase try, pushed through, scored. Caden Murley scored his first try. That was excellent. The rest of them have been chasing, as I say, 2, 3, 5 points behind, or the 2 tries later on against Ireland where they were comfortably behind. So the little bits of psychology you can look into. So are they still going to commit to that way of playing if they're ahead, or do they then sit back and think, actually, we need to defend what we've got? But then, do they defend as aggressively as they did in the Autumn Nations, which created space left, right and centre? Or do they sit off a little bit and think, actually, we can't fly at the line to create space for Scotland to put ball players to put players to the line, but by sitting off they take their aggression, their physicality away. All these things we talk about and everybody else talks about are decided on the game.
Well, all right, let's stick with England then, because we wouldn't normally approach it for this angle, but let's do it. How do you contain a side like Scotland then at this? What's your analysis going forward?
I think that's where, like the last 3 or 4 years, or 4 or 5 fixtures, England, our attack has suited England's defence. And I think that's where England, I think, will be most concerned. Actually, if we're not on it, if we're not right, they have the recent history and the recent experience of picking us off. And of course, there's been moments in all of those fixtures where England have been on top and England have been dominant. They started really well here last year, scored the first try, and Furbank scored it, and were playing really well. But then, Scotland came alive and from a couple of turnovers. So how do England contain Scotland? I think they'll probably want quite an old-fashioned game. And I know there's a lot of chat about England's new attack. I think they'll try and dominate us physically. I think they'll try and drive us as much as possible line out. I think they'll try and almost be narrow in defence but come up really quickly and try and force errors. Mm-hmm. I don't think they'll go naturally to trying to beat us because of the respect they'll have for our attack. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if it was more like a 12-9 or a 15-14.
Both sides trying to slow down.
I think our confidence from recent successes, and I think our belief, because we're further down the track, I believe in terms of the style or the DNA of Scotland under the current coaches, they've got loads of confidence in how they're trying to play has delivered big results, quite on a number of occasions. Not only against England, but against Australia's and big performances, wins in Paris and wins against France and wins under pressure. So
and coming close against
and I think England aren't. The first kind of 18 months of Borthwick's tenure as head coach was all about defence, all about kick chase, all about getting rid of the ball, because it was the first thing that he felt he could influence before building the attack. They're now building that attack. Yeah. But as I said before, are they as far down the track? So under pressure, if they are ahead, whereas if Scotland were ahead and they've got confidence in how they're trying to play, they'll keep playing. But I just wondered if England are ahead, are they at the stage where they'll keep doing what's working, or will they try and just protect it? I don't know. But it'll all be around physicality. That always is Scotland-England games, and I think if England would try to contain us, they would try and bully us. Whether they can do it or not, I'm not sure, but I think that's how they'll approach it.
An Achilles heel for them has been Duhan as well.
He scored a few, hasn't he?
What is it? I think it's like 6 tries in 4 games that he's had against England, which is it's like a record for a Guinness Six Nations side against another nation. So it's he's obviously a thorn in their side. Does that the type of, he just seems to turn up for this game. He turns up for all games, don't get me wrong, but I mean, as in there's something about these aren't just straightforward tries. These are worldies. They're all
individual and team.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a knack to score. It's an ability to score like worldies like that one 2 years ago, for his own half, and even last year out there from 50, 60 metres. But it's also a knack to be in the end of really good team tries, hold your width, be disciplined enough.
Be the finisher.
And you're taking passes down there after Fraser Brown, passed to Richie Gray, passed to Matt Fagerson. Of course, Duhan scores. Like, that's not a regular position in the 78th minute for your front five or your forwards to be. But Duhan still, disciplined to wait and take the right moment to come in off Matt Fagerson. He just used to centres delivering that pass or trailing back. So it's a knack to be a try scorer, and in this fixture especially, it seems to have a knack of finishing off the team moves as well as individual ones. But England have that threat as well. But I think it'll be nice to see some more.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, Hope's been having his Weet-Bix this week to keep going, but do you train differently then? I mean, obviously, the Scotland team have been away this weekend, this week, they've been away in Spain, and do you train differently for the Calcutta Cup with everything around it, or is it just another fixture to everybody apart from the fans?
I don't think it's just another fixture. I don't think you train any differently, but at the same time, I don't think it's treated as just another fixture.
We respect what
it
is.
There's something really special around it.
So we acknowledge it.
Absolutely, in terms of, and it probably comes more from the era that I grew up in, of, I'd played in, how strong and dominant England were, but and I know it's cliche, but it was the game that you dreamt of playing, like Scotland playing England, the old enemy, and of course it is. It's different to everybody, and I don't know if it's different to the English players. They talk about a big rivalry obviously, but a big rivalry with Wales, for instance, as well. Playing in Cardiff is special for them. But yeah, I would say you prepare the same, but it feels different.
You hear the noise around it.
And you feel it. You feel it in the stadium. You'll know. It's different. And that's not through anything you've done in any of your preparation or any... You don't do extra sessions, you don't do extra running, you don't do less running to keep fresh. it'll be periodised in terms of the Six Nations as a whole, and all your data and stats. Like, there's no change, but the atmosphere around it and the feeling around it is different. And I think you'll feel it on Saturday at Allianz, because it's a bigger game for England now than it has potentially been over the last decade or so, because of the number of victories Scotland have had.
So there is a huge pressure on both sides to get that, but that makes it a really entertaining day for us. And I suppose when we look at you hope. No, but it does, doesn't it? It makes it a tasty encounter. But again, it goes back to there is that risk at times where there's a lot at stake, and it can end up being a bit stale and a bit safe. But that's why, again, you bring the Dewey tries into it, and keeping that fixture heated. Because interestingly, what you're saying when you're talking about England, when England play up here, pitch side, you will never experience noise and volume and energy like that. So it's a really important game for the fans.
Oh, hugely important. And there's a lot of Scots live in England as well. That is an opportunity to see their team. Probably surrounded by English people at home and at work if they live down there. So it's an opportunity, for the bragging rights. I assume there'll be a travelling support as well. And it's just a really good fixture. Scotland have announced their team, obviously, and it's quite, it's fairly consistent.
Battle of the Finns at 10. It's gone for Marcus Smith at fullback. So it means
I can understand that. I thought they would keep that same. I think Finn Smith is a fantastic player as well. His grandpa was for Gala.
He'll always find a way to get the border. But Gala makes a feature.
I think Marcus Smith's a threat at fullback. Is an individual threat, and I think if you kick loosely, he could trigger that crowd into. I mean, I don't think everything he'll do will potentially be the right decision or have a wow moment, but more often than not, or more of what he does than less, will have that spark. So it has to be, whether we kick high or kick long, there has to be a real accuracy in that, and there has to be a real accuracy in the kick chase. It might be a case of you want him to run. You almost kick and force him to come back, so you can almost nullify that threat. The Finns at 10, and it's good to see Finn back fit. Obviously, he didn't play a huge amount against Ireland, and quite rightly didn't make it back onto the field. But
that was a really interesting call as well, because even though he was fit to return to play, there was a real player welfare element to that I think should be celebrated as well.
Absolutely.
We could have put him back on. The decision was taken.
Yeah, absolutely. I think was confused with one or two of the plays when he was speaking to the staff just before going back on. So quite rightly, it's made headlines, but it shouldn't. It should just be
should be standard.
Yep.
Darcy hasn't made it back though, but that means place for Kyle Rose.
And Kyle's done really well as well. It's obviously it's great to see Darcy back training, and it's a horrible head clash, but you just have to trust the medics, and we do trust the medics in that moment, and then in the days and weeks afterwards. So I think Finn passed all his HIE. HIE is a 3-step process. It's not just one in the moment. There's one in the moment after the game, and then the next game day, and then you do the gradual return to play. So it's these decisions aren't made on just a feeling or a whim. They're scientifically, medically, checked and ticked, and the players understand that, and the players will be honest within it. But just too soon, I think, for Darcy to get an element of contact before the weekend. But Kyle's he's had an amazing 12 months, really. If you think
it's a great story with Kyle, wasn't it? He was out for a long time.
He was out for such a long time, and then he obviously has difficulties in terms of contract with London Irish, and and then came into late notice to play fullback in the opening game last year's Guinness Six Nations at Cardiff, and it played so well and had a massive effect on Glasgow's URC Championship. And then how he started this season again with Glasgow's, he's more depth. With Kyle staying injured as well, and let's say Darcy not available, and others. It's a nod to the depth. Kyle's like multi-talented in terms of good in the air, quick, good defender, kicks well, comfortable at fullback, comfortable on the wing, and if the game does break up, I think it's really important to have that awareness of 15 and wing, to cover the backfield, especially with the threats that England are.
But I mean, it begs for Jamie Dobie's name to be brought into that context as well, because when you look at the cover that you've got on in the match day, sort of the 15, and then on the cover on the bench as well, for that utility position, the understanding of the backs as well.
Yeah, and I think there's a genuine opportunity or a genuine thought to even start Jamie on the wing as well. Is that good in the wing? So him and Stafford will cover the backline positions. Obviously an extra forward on the bench and changing the back row with Jamie Ritchie coming in, but Matt Fagerson will make an impact off the bench, and Matt's been really good in this fixture as well. He's been really good, I think, all the time he plays. He's a real hard edge and consistent, and he'll maybe be disappointed that he's not getting a starting berth, but he's had big influences in this fixture over the years, and he'll want to do the same. So obviously Suds and Skewy swapping round again, so a couple of changes, but it's all changes that are familiar to the squad. So
yeah, we're still talking about a core.
It's the same group.
A core group, aren't we? And we're just bedding in, and that's the other thing. I think that the Guinness Six Nations really exposes is that need that each game in opposition does require something different. So you can see why there is that movement around England. It's the same across the board. Yeah,
and that probably changes week on week. I think you probably plan for the 5 games. It could be a 6-2 or a 5-3 or a different focus on whatever it is, the style of attack for this game and defence for that game. But I assume coaches will plan for what's likely to happen, and then from week to week that plan will change, as a result of what the opposition do, or as a result of what pressure you're under, or what injuries you've had. So what you need to mitigate against all the changes and all the upheaval is a core squad that are comfortable with each other, know the systems, and know how you're going to try and play, certainly how you want to defend, and I think Scotland have that. England are getting more of that. I think there's more consistency in their selection, but I think the bigger group you have that are all on the same page, the better it is for a tournament as difficult as the Six Nations. So
it's England v Scotland on the Saturday then, but of course that means that the Friday night is England v Scotland under-20s are in action as well.
Newcastle, so it's just a short hop, actually.
Halfway distance, on the way.
So the players just got the bus down and will be quite comfortable there. I think, again, talk about travelling support, it's an opportunity certainly for, I assume, quite a lot of border people just to nip over. We're back there and cheer the guys on. Difficult start to the campaign. The game against Ireland 2 weeks ago, I thought the under-20 showed real fight. They were 26-5 down against one of the best sides in the championship, and the best sides in the age grade, and they dug in. They're really, I mean, that could easily have been a messy result, but they'll be disappointed with how they got in that position, but they should be really proud of the fight that they showed to physically match and stay in that game. They'll need to raise it again against England. England beat Ireland in the opening game 2 rounds ago, and just colossal pack, absolutely massive for under-20s, and it probably counted against England a little bit against Ireland. They did go on to win the game, and it was in Limerick, and it was like poor conditions, strong wind, miserable. So England relied purely on their physicality to try and bash Ireland away, and Ireland stuck in the fight, and similar to what Scotland did against Ireland, they stuck in. And I think our under-20s will be prepared for that. I think the bigger challenge for them will be if England do get the front foot and then play a little bit more expansively, because big players in the wide expanse are harder to stop than big players in tight, where the space between the defenders is less, and the lads have a bravery and a courage in defence. So they're going to have to physically match it, but they're going to have to take time and space away from England. Traditionally, England are really strong. But at Newcastle, with a wee bit of confidence behind the defence, and certainly in the second half, and the performance of Hettenhag against Ireland, Freddie Douglas, captain international back as well, will bring an edge that we can hopefully get a reasonable performance.
Hopefully a bit of side wind, a bit of rain as well.
I'd imagine it will be at some point.
Inevitably. Well, we're going to leapfrog now past the Wales game, past France, leapfrog past the Lions as well, and talk about a quick one on the autumns as well. So those fixtures were announced. We've got USA, then it's New Zealand, then Argentina, and finishing up with Tonga as well, to look forward to in November and thereabouts. Some tasty encounters there too.
Comes around quick, doesn't it?
Tell you what, it's a good run. It's interesting to see USA in the mix though as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the next again World Cup's there, isn't it? And I remember playing a November test against USA. I don't know when it was, 2002, something like that, a long time ago. I don't know if they've played here since.
No, I can't remember it. For an example.
So yeah, more opportunity for people to come and watch Scotland playing at home, and you know, New Zealand is always a draw. Argentina are one of the top teams in the world. Tonga will bring a physical edge as well. So yeah, 4 weekends in November where we
very different tests, very different encounters.
Yeah. There's a lot of samey in World Rugby because of the shared learning and the amount of analysis and the number of games you see now opposition players play. But there's a couple of newer opposition there that we maybe haven't played as often. Obviously Tonga in the World Cup, of course, in France. But yeah, it's quite exciting. But you've thrown me because I can't look past this weekend.
Well, here's hoping that all goes well for Scotland this weekend. I'm sure there will be a great travelling support down to Twickenham as well. And as always, you can catch up on the latest news and contents and, of course, ticket information for the Autumn Nations series as well via scottishrugby.org or via Scottish Rugby's social media channels.